Hello, I'm John Hollingsworth from DataWORKS Educational Research. Today we're going to talk about checking for understanding using TAPLE. And these strategies come out of our book, Explicit Direct Instruction, The Power of the Well-Crafted, Well-Taught Lesson, and our new follow-up book, Explicit Direct Instruction for English Learners. It's also the basis of all our trainings from DataWORKS. But before we start talking about checking for understanding, let's look at the definition of checking for understanding. I've got the definition right up here on the screen. Let's read it together. What's it say? Checking for understanding is continually verifying students are learning what is being taught while it's being taught. So what that means is you stop every 2 minutes, or every couple of minutes, not exactly 2 minutes, but make sure they're learning while you're teaching. Now, checking for understanding is not looking at the quizzes or the homework or the test scores to see if students learned. It's actually checking in real time while you teach every day. Now let's look at the steps for TAPLE. The T is the first step. The T stands for teach first before you ask the questions. Don't start asking questions before you're taught. And that provides equal opportunity. Every child can answer. Avoid these type of questions, who knows or what is this? The job is for you as the teachers, what? Teach first and then make sure the students are learning just what you're teaching.
Read with me. Solve two-step equations. There's 4 steps to doing this. Number 1, read the problem. What is the value of x in the two-step equation? All right, I want to find x. Number 2, isolate the term with the variable. All right, isolate means separate. So when I say isolate, you say separate. Separate? Isolate. Isolate? Separate. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to isolate or separate this term, separate it from the other stuff. Circle x divided by 2. We're going to do the other operation first. So once I've circled x divided by 2, I know my first inverse operation is to get rid of minus 3. I add 3 to both sides. So now I've isolated my variable, and I have plus 3 minus 2, I have 1.
Let's look at the A in TAPLE. Ask a specific question about what you just taught. No opinions. Now, specific might mean, students, how did I solve this problem? Or it could be, students, how did you just solve this problem? And of course, you could ask concept-based question. What does the answer mean? Tell me in your own words what the definition is. Avoid these type of questions. Does everybody understand? Do you know how to solve it? Those type of questions are opinion problems, and most students won't self-identify. Let's look at the next step for TAPLE, the first P. Pause, pair share, and point. So pause, there's a little research right here below it. 3 to 5 seconds is actually the research for humans to think of an answer. It takes a few seconds for your brain to process the question. The 8 to 10 over here is actually the research for English learners. English learners take a little bit longer. Actually what they're doing quite often, they're translating the question into the home language, answering in the home language, and then translate it back. If you don't provide enough wait time, not all the students are actually processing the information and thinking about it. Now, a super practice for checking for understanding is the pair share. What we do now is every question, let me say that again, every question you ask, have the students turn to their partners and answer the questions with each other. It's best to have partners, A partners and B partners. You can use different labels if you want. But you have the 2 partners and you direct the partners. A partners explain to B's. B's explain. A's go first. This way with a pair share, everybody's answering every question. Make sure that you're having a pair share using complete sentences with academic language. You don't want the student to say 6. You want a complete sentence such as, the perimeter of the polygon is 6 inches. And you get this by cueing the students. Just this week I taught a high school lesson. I had the students answer, the character trait in the dramatic monologue was, and then they had to explain the character trait. And that's using what? The new vocabulary from the lesson. The last one up here, the point, this is a great practice. If kids are pair sharing and they've got papers in front of them, you can say, I want the A partners to point to the paper, to B's paper, to partner B's paper, and explain how to solve that problem. Or A's, point to the paragraph in B's book and show them where the character traits are being revealed. Or what? Take your whiteboard and explain every number you solved on your whiteboard. The point has that kinesthetic activity where the kids are actually pointing and moving, and the one to pointing to partners is the best one.
So B's talk to A's. What did I do to isolate this variable? A's talk to B's.
And let's look at the next part of TAPLE, the second P. Let's read together. Pick a non-volunteer to measure if everyone is learning. So the next step is you've asked the question, The students have pair shared, they've rehearsed their answer, they're ready. Well, this is a great rehearsal. The pair share is great for English learners because they're practicing oral language while they pair share. Now, you always pick a non-volunteer. Make sure you don't call hand wavers. If you have hand wavers, usually what I see is the same 2 or 3 kids answering the whole lesson. With a non-volunteer, all the students are going to participate. So make sure you do non-volunteers. Usually that's popsicle sticks, 3x5 cards, or some mechanical system of calling non-volunteers. I will have to say I've taught quite a few high school lessons lately. Started calling the students and said, "Oh, you mean I have to answer the question? You want me to answer?" I said, "Yeah, I want everyone to participate." And also, if you're checking for understanding, you're doing a little polling, you have to call non-volunteers or your poll is not accurate. If you just call 3 volunteers, usually those are the 3 students who probably know the answers, who may know it already.
Brooke, Rivas, how did I isolate the variable?
You isolated the variable by doing the inverse operation.
Very good. What was that inverse operation?
The inverse operation was addition.
Let's look at the next part of TAPLE. L, listen to the response to make an instructional decision. Every time students answer, you need to make a decision. Are they with me? Do I need to reteach? What do I need to do? And let's look at the E. Here's our 3 choices. There's our 3 simple choices for feedback, effective feedback. Echo if correct, elaborate if tentative, explain if incorrect. Echo if it's correct. Sometimes just repeating the answer helps other kids hear the answer, kind of affirms to the students who reply that he has the correct answer.
You isolated the variable by doing the inverse operation.
Very good. What was that inverse operation?
The inverse operation was addition.
Addition. I added 3 to both sides. That's how I isolate the variable. You do the opposite.
The second E for effective feedback, elaborate. What you can do is just elaborate. If the student's answer is a little tentative, you can just rephrase it and actually make it sound a little bit better. You don't need to reteach.
Michelle?
You isolated the variable by adding
Yes. And what did I add?
3.
I added 3 to both sides to keep it balanced, right? That's how I isolated the variable. Very good.
This last one, though, is super important. Explain if incorrect. If you have taking notes, write a little 2 up there. If 2 students in a row can't answer, reteach. Don't fish for the answer. In other words, don't start just calling students till you find someone who knows. Just stop and reteach. All right, I think we've covered all the steps of TAPLE. Let's quickly go over them again. Teach first before you ask the question. Every child is prepared to answer. Ask a specific question. Don't ask opinion questions like, do you understand? Ask a real question, a content-based question. Pause, pair share, and point. Let's just look at the pair share. Pair share takes care of the pause. You give sometimes 30 or 40 seconds while the students explain their answers. They've had plenty of time to prepare. Pick a non-volunteer, have sticks, 3x5 cards, some method of randomization. Pick a non-volunteer. Listen to the response and provide effective feedback. You want to echo the responses, or cue and prompt, elaborate a little bit till everyone knows. Or just reteach if necessary. Do one more. If you look very carefully, you see where it says ask a question? It's before you pick the non-volunteer. So you should be asking a question. Students, how did I solve this problem? Explain to your neighbors. In a minute, I'm going to ask one of you. If you call the name first, okay, John, can you answer this question? You've called the name first. That person is thinking, and the rest of the class is just looking over. They've actually stopped thinking. So make sure you do this. Ask the question first. Let everybody think about it and discuss it, and then pick the non-volunteer. So I think we've covered all of it. I'm John Hollingsworth from DataWORKS. We covered TAPLE, the Checking for Understanding method developed by DataWORKS Educational Research. And much of it comes out of our book, Explicit Direct Instruction, and our new book, Explicit Direct Instruction for English Learners. If you have any questions about DataWORKS, you can look at our website, dataworks-ed.com.